was just saying, people are always talking about Cotton On, and I went to the one in the mall, and I'm like,
It's expensive, the one here, because the other one is like an actual outlet. Oh, there's an egg on our fireplace.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Sitting on the Floor. My name's Bella.
I'm Kira.
And if you're new here, this is a show where we talk about everything and nothing all at once. Today, we're going to be talking about a little bit of unsolved true crime. So viewer discretion is advised. If this is not your scene, there's going to be some uncomfortable topics.
Very, very gruesome.
Very gruesome. I mean, we'll try to keep it as not descriptive as possible, but when it comes
all I wrote down was details. You're going to be getting a lot of details. Heavy details.
Then you have been warned. Mine, I feel like mine was so thick that I was trying to just get as much in there as possible, so I didn't go into the nitty gritty, but we each chose a case for the other person to cover. And yeah, so if you're interested, go ahead and watch if it's not your type of scene. By all means, we'd be happy to see you next week, where the topic will probably be a lot lighter and fluffier and funnier and
happy.
Not today, though.
No. Okay, so Bella decided to give me Jack the Ripper.
What can I say?
I knew a little bit about this case before going in and researching, but while I was researching, it was interesting. So let's just get into it. So we are talking 1988 in the East End of London, in the slums, Whitechapel district. So imagine you're walking down an alley, really dark alley, like 1 a.m, right?
I'm imagining it.
Again, it's the East End of London. There wasn't really any street lights, right?
It's dark out here.
It's dark. The pollution was really bad, so there's a lot of haze. You can't really see like too far away from you.
It's like foggy.
Really foggy. Really smelly too. Really smelly. Oh, sewer smell. Disgusting.
I want to go home.
And so you're walking and you turn down the alley to walk to your home, right? And as you're getting closer to the end of the alley, you see a man standing. And there's a woman lying on the ground.
Oh.
And you walk up and you start talking to this guy, and he's like, yeah, I don't know what happened. There's just this lady standing here. So you can't see that much. There's not a lot of street lights. You don't have like a lamp on you. You feel for, like, if she's still warm, her forehead is warm, you're feeling for a pulse, all that stuff. So you and this guy decide to go get help, right? So this lady that was on the floor, her name, Polly Nichols, also known as Marianne Nichols. So that is the first canonical victim of Jack the Ripper. Really? There is 5 in total, 5 canonical ones, and there is 1 possible first victim. Okay. So that is Polly Nichols. So they went to go get police officers, and the police officers got to the scene. She was found in Bucks Row. The location is important. Okay. Bucks Row. I know that we don't have a map or anything, and I can't show you exactly where it is, but just imagine Bucks Row. It's right here. Okay. So she lost her job due to alcoholism, and she turned to prostitution. Most of his victims were actually prostitutes.
Ladies of the night.
So I wrote in here 2 men found her, and that's important later. So remember those 2 men walking down. Remember yourself walking down with seeing that man, right? Okay. Over that woman's body. So it was found that she was initially strangled. There was bruising on her face and on her neck. Her neck was severed to the bone. Her abdomen was partly ripped open, and her clothes were pulled over her wounds. So when they saw her, you couldn't really see the wounds. That's why they were feeling for her pulse and stuff, because her clothes were pulled over so that people couldn't see them. And she had the least extensive injuries of all of them. So tracking back to the first victim, her name was Martha Tabram. Sorry if I get that incorrect. She was 39 years old. And she was found on Gumthorpe Street with multiple stab wounds to her vital organs. And that was on August 7th, 1888. Did I say 1988 the first time?
You did.
It was 1888, my bad.
I was very concerned when you said 1988, and I was like, I really
I'm so
remember them
sorry.
being a lot older.
I'm so sorry. I'm at 1888.
You're good.
So the East End of London was very overcrowded, filled with poor people, harsh living conditions, lots of pollution and haze, alcoholism, and it was very bad, like, to be out at night. Like, you could not see very well at all because, like I said, there was no streetlights. So that was the first victim and the first of the canonical five. The first one was Martha. Second one was Marianne or Polly. Marianne was 44. I forgot to mention that. So the second victim, her name was Annie Chapman. She was 47. R.I.P. Annie.
R.I.P. Annie.
She was found on Hanbury Street, right? So remember when I said the first one was here, Bucks Row, Hanbury Street.
Okay.
Not too far away from each other.
Okay.
She was also a prostitute and suffered from alcoholism. Her throat was slashed, her organs were removed, and her organs were actually hung over her shoulders. Like, he took them out of her and hung them over her shoulders. That was really unsettling. Her womb was taken out of her and stolen, and half of her bladder was also taken and stolen. Which leads us to the third canonical victim, which was Elizabeth Stride. Why didn't you do Jack the Ripper? You already know so much about it.
Because I wanted to see what you would know about it.
Okay.
And also, I have a feeling you know a lot about the case that you gave me, so... No?
I do, but, like, not...
And, okay, this is
really
be
in depth.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting.
So, that leads us to September 30th, Elizabeth Stride. She was also 44.
Most of them were ladies of the night.
Ladies of the night, yes. So, Elizabeth was found on Burner Street. Again, boom, boom, boom. Like a triangle, kind of.
Okay.
Only her throat was slashed. That was really weird to the police because
The other ones were, like,
the other ones were very, very aggressive.
in-depth. And...
So since only her throat was slashed, police, like, assumed that he was interrupted. She was actually found by a man with a horse-drawn carriage. So they think that maybe he heard the horse-drawn carriage coming, and he had to stop what he was doing and run or do whatever. And some people actually believe that it was a different killer since she only had a slit neck and no other injuries, which was kind of weird to people. Right, so 45 minutes later, they find another woman. Her name, Catherine Eddowes, right? This one's hard. Hard to read. So she was the second victim in the same night, September 30th. She was found in Mitre Square, which is about a 15-minute walk from Burner Street. Her face was disfigured severely. Her nose was removed. Her cheeks were slashed. Her eyelids were cut. She was severely mutilated. I'm laughing not because it's funny, but it just hurts to read because it's so very, like, upsetting.
It's very intense.
Yes. So her uterus and her left kidney were stolen. That one was a really hard read, but the next one is even worse. So bear with me. November 9th. I'm going through the victims right now, and then I'm going to get into the other stuff in a minute. Oh man, this is hard. Okay. Last victim, November 9th. Mary Jane Kelly. She was 25 years old. And she is considered the last victim, but he is rumored to have up to 11. But we will never know. So, she was found in her home at 13 Miller's Court, in her own bed. She was found by her landlord's assistant. She was a few months late on rent, so the landlord sent the assistant to her apartment to go find her. He was knocking on the door, it wasn't being answered, so he peeked through the window and he saw her, in his words, virtually skinned down. And then another quote says that it looked like the work of a devil and not of a man. Wow, this is hard. So this was his most gruesome kill yet. She was disemboweled like the others, but large sections of her body were removed. Skin and chunks of meat were taken out of her thighs. It was just bone. It took hours of dismemberment to do what he did. Her throat was slashed literally to her spine. Her face was partly removed, nose, lips, stuff like that. Her abdomen was completely emptied and her breasts were completely sliced off. Her organs were scattered like meticulously around her feet, around her shoulders. Some were put on the bedside table. And her heart was missing from the crime scene. So that one was really, really hard to write down. I was in complete shock because I don't understand how a single person could do this. Any person in the world. I'll never understand that. So let's get to eyewitnesses and evidence. So there was not many accounts of him. Not a lot of people saw him. Of course, he was a pretty sneaky guy. They said he was short, between 5'5" and 5'7", but also a lot of people were short back then, so I don't see why that would help. He had a mustache. People claimed him to be between 25 and 35, but it was later estimated that he was about 35 to 40. He wore an overcoat and a hat, and multiple accounts of him just looking like a normal guy, which is usually how it goes. Like, think Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, people like that. So there was some evidence between the crimes on September 27th. So a news agency receives a letter from the apparent killer boasting that he didn't get caught. And he talked about clipping his next victim's ears off, which didn't happen, but he called himself Jack the Ripper, and that's where he got his name from.
What was this for?
It was a letter sent in to a news place. I don't have the name of the, but yeah. Some people say that one was not actually him, which I am not sure because he didn't clip the ears off, but I don't think many people actually knew about
what was going on. Yeah, because I mean, when you think about it, I feel like it's a lot easier nowadays to mimic people who are mentally not okay, like people who idolize murderers and serial killers and everything like that. I feel like it's a lot easier nowadays to mimic them and to copy them because we have so much more access to the information about what's going on. Whereas back in the day, I mean, how much information could they really get besides what's in the papers?
Right.
I mean, I don't think they had, media. I mean, they didn't have like news reporters and everything like that. I mean, it was 1888. So
yeah. So I'm not sure if that was like it wasn't like a confirmed letter from him, but it definitely could have been. And then on October 1st, we have a letter sent in of unreleased information of the two killers, or of the two kills in one night. So that one absolutely had to be him because there was no released information on the two kills in one night. Absolutely none. Like, nobody knew about it. Police did not release any information on it. So that one, like, I'm 99% sure, like, had to be him, definitely. October 13th, the police searched every house in the area and found nothing. That's unsettling. October 16th, this one is pretty interesting. George Lusk, he was from the Mile End Vigilante Committee, which is basically a committee that helps people with, or helps not people, but the police with like crimes and criminals and stuff. So he received a letter that was signed from hell, along with a box of half of a human kidney. And the letter claimed that it was Catherine Eddowes' kidney. And I saw a few things on this, actually. Some things say that it was real, but others say that it was like a prank from like some college kids. So I'm not 100% sure. I couldn't get any like correct information on it. But that one was interesting to me because even if it was a prank, how do you get half of a human kidney? That's like, I don't know, that's just sketchy to me.
Putting aside, I mean, they knew it was a human kidney?
Yeah.
Okay, so putting that, that's a really good question.
I know, like,
but putting that aside, were there details released saying that Catherine was missing her kidney? I mean, like how does somebody figure that out? That's my question.
Yeah, that's kind of like, I mean, there was definitely information on like the victims that were like missing organs, but I'm not sure if it was specifically kidney.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming they probably did release that information.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100%
that's the only
sure.
thing that I can think of to make them want to rule out the fact that it could actually be the murderer being like, oh, well, I mean, if people knew that it was the kidney, then it could have been anybody.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that...
It also just kind of blows my mind because if that was a prank, why? would you do that? I don't.
Let's talk about murderers. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
There's the sick people in the world. Just it's insane.
I kind of like really appreciate that now we actually have like the technology and the stuff to actually like tell when people are like doing that kind of stuff, because in the past there have been multiple people try to claim that they've been like with the Zodiac killer case, like multiple people claim that they are the Zodiac, but it's a lot easier to find like if people are actually doing it.
Yeah.
And if it's actually like the killer.
Even then, if you're claiming to be the Zodiac and you're not, like,
go to jail.
Go to jail.
Yeah.
Go to jail, but also don't go to jail for the Zodiac shit.
Yeah.
Because then you're just getting what you wanted in the first place.
Right.
I don't want to give you the satisfaction of being called the Zodiac, and I don't want you to go unanswered for wanting to be the Zodiac.
Exactly. Like if you're psychotic enough to pretend to be a serial killer, you belong in jail.
Yeah.
Actually. So that one was really interesting to me because I didn't find on if it was actually him or not. And then September 30th, this is like the biggest piece of evidence that they have. So September 30th is the same date that the 2 kills happened in one night. The second kill, her name was Catherine. A piece of her apron was found like a little bit east from her body. And a message was written in chalk, and it said, "The Jews are men that will not be blamed for nothing." It was in the era of bias. So there was just some controversy on that during that time. But it could also be totally unrelated. Like it could have just been an accident because they don't know if that note was written when he dropped the thing or he just put it there because it was written or if he just dropped it on accident. Like we don't really know. But the piece of the apron was found in the direction of the prior murder that happened 30 minutes ago.
Okay.
So the police think that he might have been either on his way back to look at the scene that was happening like they just assumed he wasn't afraid to get caught because he was on his way back to the other body. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I guess he assumed that I guess it is assumed that he doesn't look like the kind of person that would do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I did write a little note in here. The police commissioner actually resigned due to the public's anger at not being able to identify the killer, which is crazy to me because it's 1888. This is like the very first case that was like this. Like multiple aggressive kills like this in such a small time frame. Like, when were serial killers invented? Because I feel like Jack the Ripper was definitely like one of the first like actual big cases about this.
Yeah,
and
especially in that location
in that location. And it's just like, I don't want to call the commissioner a pussy, but why are you resigning? Because people are mad at you for not being able to crack the case. Like the case is still not cracked. Like we don't know for sure who it was.
It's a cold case.
It's a cold case. Like I can't stress enough. Like
I feel like that alone would be enough for me to want to keep going.
Yeah.
Like people are like, they want answers. I want answers. Why would you stop?
Exactly. Like, so his profile, I already told you a little bit about it. 35 to 40, top hat, trench coat, whatever. They thought that he had anatomical knowledge because of the way that he removed certain organs, like the uteruses and whatnot. But I wrote in here, did people not have general knowledge of the human body? Do you think? Because I wrote in here, I was like, I'm never gonna do this or need to do this, but I wrote in here and I was like, I feel like I could totally remove an organ without prior knowledge.
So, can I actually talk about my favorite theory?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you pretty much done, or should I wait?
I have my suspects, but...
Okay. My favorite theory is actually that it is a girl. Not to go all Spencer Reed. Actually, guys, what if the unsub is a woman? However, back in the 1800s, there were a lot of midwives. They didn't have doctors to deliver babies. Mm-hmm. Women did. And number one, Jack the Ripper was cutting out a lot of uteruses.
He was.
He was cutting
every single one, actually.
Almost every single one he was cutting the uterus out of.
Mm-hmm.
Or she. But who else would have, number one, such a vast amount of knowledge on that? Because for the crimes that he was committing, the amount of blood that was supposed to be everywhere was actually very precise around the bodies, as far as I remember, at least. I could be mistaken.
No, that's correct.
But it was very meticulous, contained to the body. Like, and with the stuff that he was doing, you would think there would be a lot more blood. It would be a lot messier, and he was very clean and strategic about it, which is why a lot of people thought that he was a surgeon. But also, do you think somebody running around covered in blood would look suspicious? But
I have something on that.
But who else would be covered in blood around that time period?
I have something on that too.
A midwife would also be covered in blood. And then, if everybody is looking for a man, why would they suspect a woman?
That's true. But yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't think about it because there's not a lot of women serial killers.
No.
There's like 4 or 5 that I know of.
It's not hard to throw on a trench coat and a top hat.
True.
It's not. And I mean...
And a fake mustache.
And a fake mustache. Now, and again, my thing is, people are like, oh yeah, like people are giving descriptions of him, right? Were they seeing him make the kills?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand how people gave descriptions when, first of all, everybody was dressed like that. It's the freaking 1880s. Everybody was short, 5'5". Like, a lot of people looked the same, like, back then. Yeah. And it's just like, I don't know how they would single out a single person for looking like him if they didn't see him around the crime scene or at the woman's body or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure. But that's a really good, I like that theory a lot. I never even thought about the midwives. That's kind of crazy. Yeah. Okay, so this was the profile, right? He had to have a good reason to be out at night because nobody just walks the streets at 12 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And he had to live locally, right? Because he had general knowledge of the whole area, knew where he could go to get away from people, knew where he could go to find people, find the women, right? Mm-hmm. So, possible suspects. So, the first one I have is John Pfizer. He was a bootlegger, and he was noted to intimidate local prostitutes and threaten them. And he would take money from them, but he had multiple alibis as to why he was not near any of the crimes. So I think all of these people were questioned.
So he was just an asshole.
He was just an asshole. Yeah. Just
lock him away.
Threatened women, took their money, and left.
Throw him in the jail cell.
And then we have Severin Klasowski. First of all, I just want to say these names are hard to pronounce. Who named these people? Severin? It reminds me of Severus, but...
Severin, get over here.
He was a surgeon's apprentice. Makes sense as to why they kind of questioned him. He was investigated, but he was let go. I don't remember why he was let go. I apparently did not write that down. But he did later get arrested for poisoning 3 of his wives. But that also makes sense as to why they let him go, because his preferred method of killing is poisoning and not slashing people's throats.
Kira.
He seemed very feminine. Poison is a woman's weapon.
You think they had him in jail, like, questioning him, and they're like, no, this guy's a poisoner.
Yeah.
They're like, no, this guy couldn't mutilate these women.
This guy can't hold a knife.
This guy can't hold a knife.
But yeah, so he poisoned 3 of his wives, and he went down for that and not the kills.
Well, but at least he went down for something.
Right. So then we have Francis Tumblety. I think that's how you pronounce it. He was known for despising women. And then he was arrested for sodomy.
Do we see a common variable in these men?
Men hate femininity.
All I'm saying.
Femininity. Anemone.
Anemone.
But yeah, so he was arrested for sodomy before the killing of Mary. So he didn't do the last kill. So they didn't get him for that.
How are you known for despising women?
Literally.
They're like, what I want to know is, these suspects, how did they narrow it down to these people? Were they just like, did they take a group of 100 men and they're like, which one of these ones like
hated women?
Which ones don't like women? And they're like, oh, that one, Francis.
Yep. Francis Tumblety.
Francis, what is it, Dumblety?
Tumblety.
Tumblety?
Dumblety?
Mr. Tumblety, get over here. Get in the carriage.
Oh, he also had an alleged collection of female body parts. He would have parties and show off all of his women's collected body parts.
The 1800s were a different time.
It really was crazy. So that's
guys.
why they actually got him in the first place, because he had that collection.
Hey guys, do you want to come over and look at my collected body parts of women?
I'm like, oh,
Who
I
are the
hate
women?
bees. Come see my bee collection. What? Like, okay.
I hate people who work at the bank.
I work at the bank. Here is $1. Okay. And then I have Aaron Kosminski. He was a hairdresser. He exhibited threatening behavior with a knife towards women. Lucky guess, huh?
You Sweeney Todd too close to the sun.
100 years later, Eddowes Shaw, one of the victims, was bought at an auction.
What?
Yeah.
A victim was bought?
A victim's shawl.
Oh, shawl.
What'd you think I said?
I thought you said somebody's first and last name. And I thought you were like, they were bought.
Selling women?
That's why I got scared.
No.
I was like, you're in it. Like, when I looked at the concern, you were like, yeah. I was like, holy shit.
Oh my god, no.
This got intense.
So
Like it wasn't intense before.
right. Her shawl was bought at an auction, and they DNA tested it 100 years later. And his and her DNA, or at least the descendants of them, their DNA was found on it. But they just brushed that off completely. I was like, okay.
This is why everybody in London and Whitechapel was fucking pissed at the investigators. Because, like,
Y'all keep letting people go.
for real,
Question somebody.
question somebody.
So the recent...
Why do you have women's body parts?
For real.
Why do you have women's body
Oh,
parts?
that's a
in
nice
your
kidney.
house?
Where'd you get it?
That's a nice kidney.
So this recent suspect was studied by an investigator named Krister Holmgreen. I watched a documentary on it. So you remember when I said the two men walked up to, what was her name? Do you remember? Polly?
Polly.
The two men found Polly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Robert Paul was the man that walked up from the alley. The other man that was standing over the body already, they were checking for her pulse, checking to see if she was warm. Of course, they didn't see any of the injuries because the skirt was pulled up over her injuries, the abdominal ones. And they went to go find a police officer. So when they found that police officer, they said, hey, there's a lady laying in this alley. They were about like 15 minutes out looking for a police officer. So they said, hey, there's a lady over here in this alley. There's already a police officer there. Go check that out. So the policeman let them go. And the policeman got there and there was a police on site. But the thing is that when the two men left, there was no police officer there yet. Like, they just left her there, nobody watching over her, and went to go get a police officer. There was a police officer that happened to stumble upon it before the other one that they found got there.
There were two of them, and one of them didn't think to stay.
But yeah, so when they're talking to the police officer, when they go to get help, Robert Paul gives his name, and the other one is Charles Allen Cross. That's what he gives his name. He gives him his address. He gives the police officer his address. And then they were sent on their way. My thing is, this researcher that has been recently like looking into it, they looked up his name, Charles Allen Cross, and there was no Charles Allen Cross living at the address that he gave. There was a Charles Allen Lechmere living there. So he had found out that he had taken, I think it was his stepfather's name, which was Cross, and put it on his name. Didn't give his real last name. So my thing is, first of all, why are you lying to a police officer about your name? Why are you lying to a police officer saying that there's already a police officer on site when there wasn't? Make it make sense. So there was major discrepancies in his story, in Charles' story. I'm going to call him Lechmere because I don't like Charles. There was major discrepancies in his story. So he lives here, works here. It's about a 45-minute walk to his job. Let's say he works at 6:45. He leaves his house at 6. He gets to the place where he said he was at like 6:30. I don't know the actual time frame between or when it actually happened, but there was a time discrepancy of 10 minutes from when he left his house to when he actually got to the murder scene. So he was there by himself for 10 minutes before the other guy actually got there, which is kind of crazy because the woman was still warm when the other guy got there. They were feeling for her pulse, feeling for her warmthness. So that's kind of weird, no?
And wasn't this one like one of the less brutal ones?
Yeah, this was the first canonical one.
So he hadn't like escalated yet. He didn't really know what
so
he was.
This was the one where she had abdominal wounds and just her throat was cut. So this was the first one. It wasn't super major. It was the least aggressive of all of the other kills.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so I just thought it was... I agree that it's a bit weird, the time discrepancy between that. If you look at the mapping between all of the murders and this man's job and home, it's like a triangle of his house, his job, and the new place he moved. All of the kills are in the triangle.
Gotcha.
That's weird.
Yeah, especially because all of the kills, weren't they also within like a few
they
minutes of, not necessarily minutes, but like
about 30 minutes apart, I would say, like walking distance, maybe 45. They were all kind of close to each other.
And all within that triangle of...
Yeah, within the triangle of his places to be. So this man worked, he was a delivery driver for meat, I think. He delivered meat. And he worked at a butcher place. So with the whole blood thing, like, it wouldn't be weird if this man was seen wearing an apron with blood all over it. But with that kill, in specific, since the other guy was there, it would make sense that he wouldn't have any blood on him then because she was strangled before she was actually killed. So the blood, when he cut her throat, wasn't going to splatter everywhere. It was just pooling out. You know what I mean? So it's also said that since he was there for 10 minutes, he could have done whatever. And then, you know, the man walking up the alley didn't see him right away.
Yeah.
And so he might have been like hunching over the body, trying to fix her skirt so that this man wouldn't see the wounds.
Yeah. Or even then, like, if this other guy stumbled upon him, like, who's to say that blood isn't from him finding her? And being, like, you know, trying to see if she's alive and if she's, like, moving her around and, like, trying to save her.
Yeah. So it, I don't know. It's just really weird to me how, and they just let this man go. Like, lied about his name, lied about, like, the policeman being there. Like, I don't know. I don't understand why they just let this man go. It just blows my mind.
And the investigator is just like, oh, why does everybody hate me? Why does nobody understand why my job is so difficult?
Yeah.
Because.
And so I was like watching this documentary and this guy, what's his name? Krister Holmgreen. He was like, yeah, in this day and age, like that man would have been taken in for questioning right away.
Yeah.
Like, especially after just leaving her there, nobody was there with her. Like, the two men just literally walked away. Like, mind-blowing. First of all.
Even if they didn't do anything, like, they should have been taken...
Exactly. Like, somebody should have stayed there with her, though.
Did they just, like, report the crime and then walk away? There was no questioning whatsoever?
No questioning at all.
They're
the
like,
policeman said, okay, what's your name? Where do you live? All right, you can leave. That's it.
Did they go to his house for questioning?
No. No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like... it blew my mind. I'd be like, okay, come back here with me or something. Like,
for real, they fucked it.
Yeah, they fucked that shit up. Like, completely. But yeah, so there's a lot of research on that man. I didn't get all of it, but feel free to look that man up. Watch the documentary. I'll put a link in the description or something of the documentary that I watched on that certain man, because that is the closest that we will ever get to solving this, because there is not a lot of evidence at all. And unfortunately, we will never know who actually did it, but it can be assumed. But yeah, it's crazy how, like, people back then, like, if they had the evidence that we have now, it probably would have been a lot easier to find out who it actually was, or if they had the technology. Because I don't even think that they could look up an address and see who lived there. Could they do that?
Back then in the 1800s?
Mm-hmm. Because I know that they have records, because the man was looking at the records in the documentary about who actually lived there. And that's how they found out that his name was different. But yeah, this man did a lot of research on the whole crime, the whole serial killing thing. And I just thought, that Lechmere thing makes sense because the way the kills were positioned and the general knowledge of the area, the streets that he walked, 2 of those kills were on the way to his job. Like on the streets on the way to his job. So that's the closest I've gotten to having some kind of closure. Because now I'm just angry. I'm very angry because how do you do that to somebody? That last kill was absolutely gruesome. And it, like, kills me because it could have been, like, so much, like, worse with the other women. The fact that he had the privacy of being in her home.
Yeah.
And the stuff that the fact that it was way, like, so much more gruesome.
It's also terrifying to think about that, like, that was as far as we know, his first time being in somebody's house.
Yeah.
So it's like, how kills escalate. Mm-hmm. If that was his first time doing that alone in somebody's house, like, how much worse could it have been if he was doing that the entire time?
Yeah.
Like, they would have kept escalating and kept getting worse.
Yeah. And it's just, like, the fact that he had so much time with her and did what he did, like, it makes my heart hurt. Like, absolutely.
And she was the youngest.
And the fact that he, like, took the organs, and they've never been found. They have never been found. What the fuck did he do with them? Like, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm gonna get upset just thinking about it.
So I know we mentioned it a little bit in the Ripper case, but in case you didn't pick up on it, Kira gave me the case of the Zodiac killer, who was a serial killer in Northern California, specifically in the San Francisco Bay Area. He claimed to have killed over 37 victims.
That's crazy.
But only 7 are confirmed. I did see an instance where I think somebody said he was rumored to have 49, but in his letters he stated 37. So I'm going with 37, but there are 7 confirmed ones. However, I have, I think, 5 cases that were suspected to be a part of the Zodiac case, however, are unconfirmed.
I'm so sorry I give you such a big case because now that I'm thinking about it, like, there's so much that goes into the Zodiac killer.
There's a lot.
Like, all of the letters, I can't. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So what I will say is I mainly touched on the cases themselves, not like the encryptions. I didn't touch on a lot of the descriptions and everything like that. So if anything is missing or anything is not quite where it's supposed to be, I do apologize. However, I wanted to get as much information into this that I could in the amount of time it would take me to explain it in the podcast. So with that being said, again, like stated before, viewer discretion is advised. And also, I am not a professional. I am not a public speaker. So if I mix anything up, I apologize.
Oh, I should have had that too. That disclaimer. I'm really bad at public speaking.
Okay. So the first confirmed attack was actually in 1968. However, 5 years prior, there was, 5 years prior and then 2 years prior, there were 2 cases that have extreme similarities to future Zodiac cases that I included. So the first suspected attack in the case was Robert Domingos and his fiancée, Linda Edwards. They were both seniors in high school, and they were found murdered inside of a shack on a beach in Santa Barbara in June of 1963. So that's 5 years before the first confirmed Zodiac case. Robert was found with 11 gunshot wounds, and Linda was found with 9. And the reason why a lot of people suspected that they are a part of the Zodiac case is because they were killed with the same ammunition that the Zodiac used in the first 1968 murder on Lake Herman Road, and with similarities to the attack at Lake Berryessa in the future case of 1969. These were never confirmed to be a part of the Zodiac case, but again, they did hold those similarities. And also, the Zodiac did have a tendency to go after couples, and more specifically younger couples at like lovers' lanes or like lovers' lakes, like a lot of hookup spots for younger kids. So that was in 1963 around the same San Francisco Bay Area. but it was never confirmed. The second suspected attack in the case was Sherry Josephine Bates. She went to the Riverside City College Library on October 30th in 1966, so that's 2 years before the first confirmed Zodiac case, and she did not make it home. She left a note for her dad saying that she was going to be going to the library, but then she was found the following day lying dead between 2 buildings with her throat brutally slashed and with multiple stab wounds. At the crime scene, there was a man's watch, a print of a military boot and hair, and the dried blood on Sherry's hand, so she put up a fight. But unfortunately, she did not survive. And then 1 month after the murder, the newspaper received letters from the killer with similarities to the future Zodiac letters. The first letter stated Miss Bates was stupid. She went to the slaughter like a lamb and added, I am not sick, I am insane. And then there's a second set of notes given to the newspaper police and Sherry's father, and I think it was a couple months after Sherry passed. And that letter to the newspaper police and Sherry's father stated, Bates had to die, there will be more. The note was signed with a symbol that resembled the letter Z. And then in 1969, Riverside police contacted investigators in Northern California about the similarities in the Zodiac case. The documents examiner concluded that the Zodiac was responsible for the notes, which led to the Zodiac sending in a note to confirm the theory. The third note stated, I do have to give them credit for stumbling across my Riverside activity, but they are only finding the easy ones. There are a hell of a lot more down there. Years later, though, the theory was discarded and replaced with a suspect who was a previous lover of Sherry. However, the DNA did not match the hair that was found in her hand. So to this day, there is still no closure on who killed Sherry.
How did he know her name for the letter?
I don't know. The people suspected that she, like I said before, they suspected it was a previous lover who was stalking her, which would make sense how they knew her name, but that was also discarded because the DNA didn't match. So the only thing I can think of is maybe in a case of where she gave him her name, maybe he was charismatic, maybe he asked for it, maybe he found her library card.
Oh, okay.
There's not a lot of information on Sherry. So she was the second suspected one. She was not confirmed to be a part of the Zodiac case. And there isn't any closure on her case, unfortunately, along with all the other cases in here. However, the first confirmed attack of the Zodiac case was December 20th in 1968, when 17-year-old David Faraday and 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen were on a date on Lake Herman Road, and they were shot with a .22 caliber semi-automatic pistol. Betty Lou had 5 bullet wounds in her back and was found dead, and David had been shot in the head, but he was still barely alive. He later passed on the way to the hospital in the ambulance. There were holes found in the roof of the car that they were in, which officials were led to believe that they had been given warning shots to scare them out of the vehicle. And then the 2 teens were suspected of being random targets. However, this is the first one that really gave them a little bit of an idea that he was going after teenagers. Again, it was the first confirmed one, but
So that was the first, actual confirmed. Okay.
Yep. This was the first one where they he wasn't called the Zodiac yet. He didn't declare himself the Zodiac. He didn't send in a letter or anything like that. This was December 20th of 1968, so it was towards the end of year of 1968. And it wasn't confirmed to be a part of the Zodiac case until sometime mid-1969, because that was when he sent in his first letter, which also gave them the conclusion that unfortunately, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday were a part of the case themselves because he mentions them in the letters.
Okay.
The second confirmed attack of the Zodiac killer was 22-year-old Darlene Farron and Michael Mageau on July 4th of 1969 in the Blue Rock Springs Park parking lot. They were followed into a previous parking lot and left, and then this, according to Michael, this car pulled in around midnight and then shot Michael in the shoulder, leg, and jaw, and Darlene in multiple areas across her body. The car then proceeded to leave, and at 12:40 p.m., officials received a call stating, "I want to report a murder." If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you'll find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Lugger. Maybe? I don't know guns. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye. So that was in reference to Betty Lou and David.
Okay. And what was the date on this one?
This one was the 4th of July in 1969.
Okay, so it was like a good 5-6 months.
It was
apart?
7 months.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 7 months, 6.5 months since he murdered Betty Lou and David. Darlene died once she got to the hospital, but Michael survived and gave a description of the Zodiac, stating that he was a young white male, 26 to 30 years old, stocky, 200 pounds or larger, about 5'8", light brown curly hair, and a large face. On August 1st in 1969, the letters, the infamous Zodiac letters, the first of them, were sent to newspapers from the killer demanding to be published. Otherwise, he would continue his killing spree. They revealed specific things about the crimes and included codes to be deciphered, one stating, "My name is," more on that later, and were signed with his infamous symbol, which was a circle with a cross through it. DNA was taken off of these and following letters, which, again, more on later. So that's a lot.
Yeah.
But again, goes towards the profile of he's going after young teenagers, early adults who are going to these lover hookup spots.
Mm-hmm. The description didn't really help at all.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much that you can really do with that at all.
Yeah. Wait, so they took DNA off of the letters and they didn't find anything?
They did later on. So those letters that they sent in were later analyzed for DNA to be used against suspects. However, I feel like there's only so much you can do with letter off of an envelope.
Yeah.
I mean, number one, I don't know how DNA works. I don't know how it holds up against time and everything like that.
I think with DNA, don't you already have to be in the system for something?
You do. So, I mean, they used it against people that they were considering. So, let's say I brought you in for questioning, and they could use they could take your DNA and compare that against the stuff on the envelopes. Mm-hmm. But you'll actually see in the suspect list that I'm going to talk about at the end why that doesn't necessarily
help.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if it matches, great, but the likelihood of that matching is slim to none. Yeah. The third confirmed attacks were Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard at Lake Berryessa on September 27th in 1969. A man holding a gun approached them wearing a hooded executioner's costume with a white crossed circle stitched on his chest. He told them...
What color was it? It was white?
White, yeah.
With a white stitched circle?
Mm-hmm. White cross circle. So you know the Zodiac symbol where it's a circle with a cross through it? That was on his chest.
In white?
Yes.
But... Okay.
I'm just reading what the article said.
Okay.
I was taking that shit word for word, girl. I was like, white cross circle. He told them he escaped prison and needed money with a vehicle to get to Mexico. He bound their wrists and stabbed Brian in the back 6 times and Cecilia 10 times. He then proceeded to their car and drew a crossed circle on the door, followed by the dates and times of the previous murders. December 20th, 1968, September 4th, 1969, and then September 27th, 1969, 6:30 by knife, which is the time where he stabbed them. At 7:40 p.m., he called in to officials to report the attacks, stating, "I'm the one who did it." Cecilia died 2 days later, but Brian lived. And then Brian gave a description of the killer as well. 5'8" to 6 feet tall, heavy set, 225 to 250 pounds, and dark brown hair that could be seen out of the mask that the killer was wearing.
Can I say something funny?
Yes.
He sounds like Dream. He sounds like he looks like Dream.
So, funnily enough, one of the infamous Zodiac killer sketch, which I can input right here, a lot of people believe that he looks exactly like Ted Cruz.
Who's Ted Cruz?
A politician. And
Can you look him up for me?
I sure can.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
But they did say curly hair, didn't they? Wait, so... Okay, so with that case, like, he went up to them and asked them for money?
Mm-hmm. He said that he had escaped prison and he needed money and a car to get to Mexico.
Why would they stop for him?
Well, they were already stopped. He came up to them.
Why would they not drive away?
Well, they weren't in their car. They were like outside, and he came up to them. And I mean, if a guy is coming towards you with a knife, yeah, you can run, but also like, I guess a lot of people get shell shocked and like fight or flight. So,
Girl, at that point, it's fight. Or flight. Either one would have worked.
Or flight.
And also, how does he get both of them bound and tied up? Because he has to tie one up at a time. Why wouldn't the other one run?
The only thing I can think of is he was threatening them with the knife, and maybe he got a hold of Cecilia and holding the knife up to her.
I'll kill her.
Yeah, like maybe it was something like that. I don't know.
They bound with like rope, or like
Yeah, they were bound with rope.
okay. And then how long after did he call after he stabbed them?
About an hour later.
And they were still alive.
Mm-hmm. Cecilia died 2 days later, but Brian lived. And it's crazy because in every instance where there's a girl and a guy, if
The girl always dies.
the girl always dies. Yeah, not the guy.
He's got something against women. Everybody got something against women.
That's the thing though, because later on, the one case where he broke off, actually the next case, the fourth confirmed attack, which is the final confirmed one, is the one that he kind of broke the cycle with, which is really weird. And that is actually Mr. Paul Stein, a taxi driver.
This was like one of the more popular ones.
Yeah, this is
that name.
this is the most famous Zodiac killer case, Paul Stein, and this is actually the case also where the infamous composite sketch of the Zodiac killer comes out of as well. Paul Stein was a 29-year-old cab driver who passed away on October 11th, 1969. He was driving a passenger who was the Zodiac when he was shot in the head. The Zodiac then took a piece of his shirt and walked away. A neighbor saw the incident and reported it, giving a description of a white male, 25 to 30 years old, 5'8" to 5'9", stocky, a red-brown crew cut, and heavy-rimmed glasses. The police broadcasters, get this, accidentally reported the Zodiac as an African-American male in their haste. And then...
Are you joking?
This resulted in passing officers dismissing a white man who matched the description of the Zodiac perfectly. They found him walking on the street and they dismissed him. Which then also resulted in a letter later saying how they fumbled it and he had an interesting run-in with some cops. There was a bloody fingerprint left in the taxi, and the infamous police sketch of the Zodiac was formed from neighbors who, again, saw the whole thing. It was believed to just be a standard robbery until the newspapers received an envelope from the Zodiac. This is the case where he actually dubbed his title, and it was with a letter stating, "I am the murderer of the taxi driver," and a piece of Paul Stein's shirt. In a future letter, he stated that he left fake fingerprints and that the police sketch was not accurate due to him wearing a disguise at the time of the murder.
Sounds like bullshit to me.
Sounds like bullshit to me, because I tell you what, they passed a man who looked just like that on the fucking street. And then he proceeded to say in a future letter how he had an interesting run-in with some cops. I don't know about you, but that sounds like to me that it could have been the fucking Zodiac.
I'm still stuck up on the fucking news people.
Can you imagine?
That is insane.
Can you, it wasn't the news, it was the police officers. The person who got on the police scanner and was giving a description to the police officers, in their haste, gave, yeah.
No, that's fucked up.
It's so
That's so
insane.
fucked up. Like that, I can't, I literally have nothing to say. Like,
And
I never knew that. And that just blew the fuck out of my mind. Like, I can't.
I remember when I first learned the case of the Zodiac, like however many years ago. Probably, I think it was in 2020, because in 2020 they actually received, like somebody cracked one of his ciphers. back in 2020. So the case was kind of like going around again. Go ahead.
I love people who still work on cold cases.
People who-
Because that man that cracked that code, good on you, dog.
Good on you.
I could never. You do you and keep doing you. Because that's crazy.
It's insane.
And the fact that the police couldn't do it, join the police force.
Okay, so going quickly through the next three, because these were all suspected and not confirmed. The third suspected attack was pregnant 22-year-old Kathleen Johns. Now, I think we're going to like Kathleen. Kathleen was a badass. But the third suspected attack was pregnant 22-year-old Kathleen Johns and her infant in the Modesto area in 1970. They were traveling in their station wagon to visit Kathleen's mother, who was sick. Another driver pulled beside the vehicle and flagged them down, stating that the back wheel was loose. When he started to fix the problem, he actually loosened the tire himself. And when they stopped again, he offered to drive them to a local gas station. Once inside the car, he made threats at her and her child, so she grabbed her daughter and jumped out of the moving vehicle. Another driver then took her... Yeah. Another
Wait,
driver...
she had a child and she was pregnant?
She was not playing any games.
Go Kathleen.
Go Kathleen.
They wrote a song about you, Catfish did.
They sure did. Catfish in the bottom then. Another driver took Kathleen to the police station where she identified the suspect from a picture. A few months later, the Zodiac mentioned in a letter a rather interesting ride. However, this was not confirmed.
She's a slay.
She is.
She's a whole slay.
Which I don't understand how it's not confirmed, because he mentioned in a letter that he had a rather interesting ride with a woman and her child. So the fact that this wasn't confirmed is
Did
making
she
me...
give...
So this is the other thing, right? This was a suspected Zodiac, right? And you'll see why it was suspected when I get to the suspects.
Okay.
But
I'm nervous.
she did in fact point somebody out in a police lineup. The fourth suspected attack was 25-year-old Donna Lass in Lake Tahoe, Nevada on September 6th in 1970. She previously worked in San Francisco at Letterman General Hospital on the military base near where Paul Stein was murdered, the cab driver. She moved to Lake Tahoe and began working at the Sahara Hotel and Casino as a nurse. Why do hotels and casinos need a nurse? Besides the point, I was just really confused when I was writing that down. I was like, okay, queen.
True, though.
Get your job. Get your coin.
On site.
On September 6th, 1970, she disappeared after the last log in her workbook at 1:50 a.m., and her car was discovered abandoned near her apartment. It was reported that an unidentified man called Donna's employer and landlord, stating that Donna had to leave town due to a family emergency. However, Donna's family later said there was no such thing. It is suspected that she could be a victim of the Zodiacs due to a postcard sent to the police from Lake Tahoe stating pass Lake Tahoe areas and sought victim 12. This was never confirmed. Again,
Was she ever found?
She was not found. No, unfortunately, Donna Lass is still missing. But more on this when I get to the suspects. And then finally, the fifth suspected and final attack that I have written down, because like I said, they were rumored to be over 37, was actually not linked to an attack at all. On August 1st, 1973, the Albany Times-Union received a letter stating, "You are wrong, I'm not dead or in the hospital, I am alive and well, and I'm going to start killing again. Below is the name and location of my next victim, but you had better hurry because I'm going to kill her August 10th at 5 p.m. when the shift change. Albany is a nice town." Under the note, the writer included 3 rows of symbols. Cryptanalysts deciphered them to say, "Albany Medical Center, this is only the beginning." Investigators could not link any murders to August 10th, and it is undetermined if this note was written by the previous writer of the Zodiac letters due to lack of significant characteristics.
Wait, so this is in a completely different state?
No, Albany is in Albany's in California.
Oh, I thought Albany was in, like, New York.
It's a city in California as well.
Okay.
The Zodiac sent in a letter stating that he was going to kill somebody on August 10th at 5 p.m. when the shift changes. However, no murder was reported. Interesting. So that we don't know.
Wait, so did he say her name in the note?
They deciphered the note to say Albany Medical Center. This is only the beginning.
I would be terrified if I was working at Albany Medical Center.
I would be dipping.
I would not be working there anymore. Putting in my 2 weeks of leave, not even going through the rest of the 2 weeks.
Honestly.
Quitting on site. Goodbye.
Yeah. Which leads us to the ending.
Slay.
The suspects. This is where it gets extremely... where all the pieces start to fit together.
Okay.
There are 3 main suspects. The first one I just want to say is a fucking crock of bullshit. I don't know where this suspect came from. There's not much on this suspect other than the fact that somebody just thought it was him. Okay, that's it. He was not linked to be in any specific place at any specific time. The first suspect is Earl Van Best Jr. Gary Stewart thinks his father, Earl Van Best Jr., is the killer because he looks like the composite sketch. His name matches several letters in the My Name Is code, which is a code of multiple letters and symbols. And a handwriting expert is, quote-unquote, virtually certain his handwriting on his marriage certificate is the same as the Zodiac's. This was disproven due to the priest being the one to write on the marriage certificate, which in hindsight and in this theory could mean that the priest is the Zodiac. I'm not saying the priest is the Zodiac.
Here's my thing with that one. That kind of makes me upset. Because I feel like at that point you're just accusing him because you don't like him or something.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can't just accuse somebody with absolutely no evidence.
Right.
Like, you just didn't like your dad, dog. Like, just say that.
For real. He also only matches the Paul Stein sketch, which is that infamous sketch that, you know, everybody knows of the Zodiac Killer. But he does not match the description that Michael Mageau or Brian Hartnell gave, which were the 2 survivors of the Zodiac, when they stated that he was over 225 to 250 pounds, short brown hair, everything like that. He did not match those descriptions. And his DNA was never tested against the sample taken off the letters because there was not enough evidence against this man. Which...
Okay, well that... I feel like they still should have tested him.
Yeah.
Just in case.
That is the only thing that I think could have ruled him out entirely.
Yeah.
I don't think it was him. But I think
even
this...
if, like, I mean, dude...
What does it take?
If he's being accused, just test him.
What does it take? Like...
Right. Like... Even if you have, like, there's a little bit of evidence,
yeah.
a little bit of, like, oh, it might be him.
Yeah.
So even if there's just a little bit of, oh, it might be him, test him.
Yeah. The second suspect is Arthur Lee Allen, which I don't know if you can tell I have the most on because he is he's basically the one suspect that everybody thinks is the Zodiac Killer. Mm-hmm. Everybody is 99% certain that it was this man. Again, it was never confirmed, which is unfortunate. However, when you hear everything in this, you're going to be like, oh, that's the Zodiac Killer, that man right there. Robert Graysmith thinks Arthur Lee Allen is the killer due to Allen telling his family on the day of the Lake Berryessa attack that he was going scuba diving there. He came home that night covered in blood and had a knife in his car. Allen's friend Don Chaney states that he actually called himself the Zodiac before the killer did.
Pause.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Mm-hmm.
He came home
covered in blood. Also, why was the wife just fucking chill about it?
She didn't report anything?
She didn't think anything of it. She's just like, oh, well, sounds like...
Coming home with more blood.
Seems like he had a great day at Lake Berryessa. Like, what the fuck?
Good job scuba diving.
He told his friend that he was planning on hunting people with a gun and a flashlight. In an interview, Allen said his favorite book was The Most Dangerous Game, which is about a man who hunted humans and was also referenced in one of the Zodiac's letters where he says that he enjoys partaking in man's most dangerous games. His trailer home was then searched and found with sexual devices, bloody knives, and small dissected animals. However, none were linked with the murders. In 1974, he was convicted of child molestation and spent 3 years in jail. Funnily enough, no Zodiac letters were received while this man was in jail. Also going hand in hand...
Is there pictures of him?
There are.
Can you look one up for me?
I sure can.
I need to know if this man looks... Am I going to get mad?
Mm-hmm. You sure are.
Take it off the screen.
Yep. And
That's crazy. I'm sorry. That's
No.
crazy. That's insane.
And
Why didn't they get this man?
fuck if I know. And then one of the previous Zodiac letters, he mentioned, I didn't include the letter, so I'm paraphrasing, but he mentioned bombing a school bus to watch the kiddies run out. An inmate from the jail claims that Allen admitted to murdering Paul Tyne, and in 1991, a detective interviewed Michael Mageau, and he picked out Allen in the list of suspects. This allowed investigators to conduct another search of the trailer home, where they found formulas for bombs, constructed bombs, and tapes about the Zodiac. Allen was interviewed, and they said that he knew nothing. He was found dead a year later. The only reason why he was not convicted is because his DNA did not match the sample collected from the letters. However, he tended to have other people lick his stamps for him. The handwriting analysis also was not a match, and he does not look like the composite sketch, according to investigators. He was the prime suspect.
Is he dead?
He's dead. He's dead. They found bombs.
First of all, how do you not get arrested for threatening to bomb a school bus?
Oh no, the Zodiac did that, not him. Not like he was, I don't know. He was convicted of child molestation. They found bombs in his trailer home. And the Zodiac made threats of bombing children.
So they just didn't think to connect any of that.
No, also, why did he have dismembered animals in his freezer?
That is like the biggest sign of like a sociopath.
It is just insane. And then while he was in jail, there were no letters found.
Did one come out after he got out of jail?
I don't know for sure. I'll have to look it up and put it in here if it was. Also, how are you... It fucking pisses me off when people... Number one, he told somebody in jail that he killed Paul Stein.
Yeah.
He called himself the Zodiac before the letters did. Also,
Came home with blood on him and a bloody knife after saying he was going scuba diving.
There is just so much adding up against this man. If this man wasn't the Zodiac killer, he was a fucking killer, point blank. But
I'm
also
just baffled at how
tapes...
bad the police force is at... Hire us.
Yeah.
Hire us. We'll figure it out for you.
The tapes of the Zodiac... He had multiple tapes of the Zodiac and then proceeded to say that he didn't know anything about them. Bull fucking shit. Bull fucking shit. Excuse my language.
They had this man and let him go.
Mm-hmm. Sure did. And then he just died. Didn't serve any fucking justice for it. Just... Formulas for bombs, constructed bombs.
Bella, if I ever die by a serial killer, I need you to be...
Girl, I'm
top on the case.
I'm on the case.
I need you to be...
I
need you to be the case.
I am... Jesus.
Don't even call the sheriff.
I called the sheriff. Not me. I didn't do it.
Oh my god, because I just can't. The amount of like cases that the police force have just fucked up. Mm-hmm. This one, that one, John Benet Ramsey, I can name 5 more. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. And I forgot to mention in mine, when they took the first body, the first canonical victim, the morgue had rinsed her down before they got to like officially check her out. So they rinsed her body down, threw away her clothes.
What the fuck?
And they just rinsed her down so there was no evidence left whatsoever on her body.
How are...
I forgot to mention that. I don't know how I forgot, but that made me mad.
That's so...
I was so angry.
Nobody's touching your fucking body.
Girl.
Nobody's touching your fucking body. I'm not touching your fucking body.
Anyway. I'd be mad, bro.
And then finally...
I hope he got haunted. I hope ghosts haunted the fuck out of him.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, there is one more suspect. Lawrence K., who was also known as Kane. Harvey Hines, a former California police officer, believes that Lawrence K. was the killer. Kane was in a car accident that damaged his brain and thus influenced his behavior. His name can also be seen in the My Name Is code. In that code, this part's kind of bullshit, but in that code there are 3 8s with a circle around them, which adds to 24. So 8 plus 8 plus 8 is 24. And he was born in 1924, which I don't think really has anything to do with it, but, you know, a California police officer thought that it might. So, Darlene's sister, which I don't know if you remember much about Little Miss Darlene.
Darlene was the first one?
Darlene was a part of the second confirmed attack.
With who? With Michael.
With Michael.
Gotcha.
Yes. Darlene's sister claimed that Kane followed and harassed Darlene in the weeks before she was murdered. Kane was 45 in 1969 for the Paul Stein case and lived 6 minutes away, making him fit the description that the neighbors gave, which was the cab driver, that case. He also lived close to where several victims lived or were killed. The police officer also stated that Kane was the closest he's seen to anyone who looks like the killer. And then Kathleen Johns picked him out of a police lineup as the man who kidnapped her and her baby. So she was the one who jumped out of the moving vehicle. He also lived in and worked in the same hotel in Lake Tahoe in 1970 that Donna last disappeared from, the nurse who worked at the casino. There is no record of his DNA being tested, and his handwriting was ruled as inconclusive against the Zodiacs. He also only matches the Paul Stein sketch, not as the description of Michael Mougeot or Brian Hartnell. Which leads me into the theory that he is the Zodiac copycat. So when you look at it, the cases that he best fits are Paul Stein and forward, which were the suspected attacks.
Okay.
Which
is there a picture of him?
I think there is.
On the internet?
Yes, there is. But he does not.
He doesn't look like.
I don't think he looks like him as much as Arthur
That
Lee
other
Allen
dude?
does.
Yeah.
Arthur Lee Allen.
No, that
looks...
actually, like, I saw him and it pissed me off. Like. He's a Taurus?
Oh, well, he definitely looks more like him in these pictures than the one that I saw. That's the one that I saw.
No, the other guy looks way.
Which
he definitely could have been the
copycat. But yeah, that is the Zodiac case.
I like your theories. And now I'm mad.
Yeah.
Because I've never actually like looked into the suspects like that. And now I'm angry.
Yeah. Like I said, if I missed anything or anything is like out of order or jumbled, I apologize. However, I need you guys to know I tried. Did you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. I am really, really sorry, and it is heavy on my heart that these victims don't have any kind of closure on their cases. It makes me very upset. But that's basically how it's going to be, I guess. We can have our suspicions, we can try to figure it out, but we will honestly never know.
Yeah.
Never have any more evidence. The cases were so long ago. And we can suspect all we want to, but it's just really sad.
It's really unfortunate that no justice was served, that we'll never know, the families will never know, the victims will never know. I mean, they'll know, but we won't. And that's really unfortunate, especially because they were so old that they died without having any justice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know it's a really heavy topic. So if after this you want to put on something lighthearted,
go watch Adventure Time.
Go watch Adventure Time. Some Gilmore Girls. Some fuzzy comfort show that you have.
Yep.
Closing out the episode, we just wanted to remind you that we have a link tree posted below with all of our socials. So check out us on any of those. If you enjoyed, please do share with your friends, your family, your loved ones. Maybe not this episode if they are
Yeah, probably not this one.
a little
Squeamish.
I
I was squeamish reading what I was reading.
But yeah, thank you so much.
Excuse me.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next week.
Catch you next week.